It's a nice sunny day out there, but in traditional sense, we're inside doing our budget for you, and equally traditionally, we have our budget panel of experts. And what experts we've got for you? We've got one chairman, two CEOs, three managing directors, and a man who's been a private investor for so long he's never actually had a job. I bring you our magnificent seven.
Today's budget will continue to help people through this global recession and prepare Britain for the opportunities of the future.
It was a budget of a Chancellor in denial. It lacked imagination. And I think more than anything else, it was probably focused much more on the politics than the reality.
There were measures to support investment.
I've got to say that in the world that I specialise in, the world of marketing and promoting financial services, it's quite big news in Toy Town, this budget.
We will protect investment in schools and hospitals.
Well, I came along today looking a bit like a jockey, because that's exactly how I feel. Riding this big gamble that Alistair Darling's taking with deficit spending, and here he is today saying that he's going to increase it.
I think that is the reaction, the budget of missed opportunities. What is surprising, I think, was listening to it, it was almost as if it was business as usual. That was perhaps the impression you get, aside from the mind-boggling figures that it started with.
Out of recession.
Well, I listened hoping to hear things I didn't hear. I didn't hear the word enterprise once. The country seems to be forgetting a whole swathe of companies that you'd hope would be the lifeblood of any sort of recovery.
When the world economy was plunged into a deep crisis...
It seems that on the one hand he's professing the importance of the financial services sector, then on the other hand he's taking it away again by making it less attractive for successful people in that industry to want to come and work in the UK.
Prolonged depression.
We're having basically an economy that is being held up by a perception either it's working or it's not working, and the government itself has to keep that perception going.
It was a lot of tinkering around the edges to try to pretend to be able to doing something, a bit like with the 50% tax rate. Ultimately, it'll raise a few £100 million, but it's something for him to fight an election on, not something to deal with an economic crisis over.
Probably the biggest thing is this major kind of push towards tilting the saving and investment playing field in favour of ISAs. I mean, that increase in the ISA limit is going to be a big story in my world.
The key issue for equity investors going forward is trying to judge the real turning point in the economy and whether this deficit spending gamble is going to work. Issues of taxation are just negligible in that context.
I was happy to see the changes to the ISA allowances rising to £10,200. I think particularly for pensioners, the combination of the rise in the ISA allowance and the rise in the limit for savings that's disregarded for the pensions tax credit could really help those pensioners who are on modest incomes.
If they do increase the income tax relief for investors to 40%, that's a good start. But what I am terrified about is the amount of companies that are knocking on the door of insolvency right now. This might be too little too late.
And I have to say, I was sitting there feeling the world has changed and the language of this Chancellor has not. And he still has no grasp of reality.
I hope you enjoyed that, got the best out of that. As usual, if you've got any comments to make, any suggestions, queries, or anything you want us to talk about, we're on the same address.